Hey guys, this is my video. My name's Jace. Haven't uploaded any public videos on the channel for a long time. Mostly just do unlisted stuff and share it for like my WoW guild. This is the road to Duriel. We're gonna clear Act 2 hardcore or fail. So basically for the past year or so I've been playing hardcore games pretty much exclusively. Dabbled in a couple other stuff, had a fun run with like Gauntlet with my friend Gairth. And that's because there's just something about the hardcore experience that really sets me straight in a lot of ways when it comes to enjoying video games. And the first and foremost is really it comes down to, decisions you make mattering more, and, experiencing the game in new light. I've played a lot of World of Warcraft Runes in my time, and it's all been fun, but there's something about the hardcore experience of, what you think you might know is not actually the case. What's good, strategies that you approach things with, even itemization starts to become in question. And it's really like playing a lot of these games for the first time again. And in classic WoW in particular, there's a lot of people that play hardcore, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a really, especially nowadays, Burning Crusade coming, the play race, at least on my server, is very, very small. And so is the other main server, Doom. How I need to get out of here. So it really brings that community aspect too, which is incredibly desirable. But again, the greater point is it becomes a new game to discover. Now, this is kind of first big talking point here is, games. A classic statement is like, why would you want to enjoy an old game, or why would you want to enjoy or play a solved game? It's like, well, I have a pretty simple counterpoint to that, and I think it's pretty tough to refute, but it's only solved. It's not necessarily solved to you if you pick up this game and start playing it, right? These games are solved to you when you go look up online stuff, and you look up guides, and you're looking up the best route to beat Elden Ring, and you're looking up the best strategies and guns to use in whatever shooter you're playing, or League of Legends, right? And you don't even know. League of Legends is a little different of a case because it's like a competitive PvP game, but I think the greater point still stands as like, you didn't solve it, so it's not really a solved game. Do you really understand how so much of it works, or are you just, following the instruction manual for cooking the meal, or whatever the recipe? What about coming up with the recipe for the first time, or maybe trying and failing a couple of times before you get what you want? And I think that's a big part of what's missing from modern games is they don't really want you to fail, and I'll touch back on that, but there's certainly like a cultural phenomenon around it, right? Like Path of Exile is the perfect example where you look up your little build and you play it, and it's like all's fine and well, but did you really play the game because you followed a build? You certainly went through the motions of playing the game, but with a game as complex as that, I would say that's a really large draw of the game, Path of Exile, and even World of Warcraft. How do you do this dungeon, or whatever? What's my leveling route? And when you look up guides, and how to go find a certain weapon in Elden Ring, and where to put my stat points, you're not learning or experiencing it in earnest. Alright, we gotta go back, that's fun. And it's just something that's lost, and maybe maybe that's stretching it, but there's a way to say that too that might be more concise, but I think that's the case. So every day, not every day, but a lot of days, when I play Classic World of Warcraft, I boot up the Battle.net client, and I see Diablo 2, and I'm always like, well, that would be a fun game to try again. And I've kind of always thought to myself, like, well, no one's really playing it, no one really cares that much. Like, yeah, maybe there's a couple of YouTube guys that do it, but none of my friends are certainly excited about it, given its age or whatever. And that's okay. But you know what? I was really excited about it. To give it a kind of a spin here, and back to a little bit on the hardcore thing is, over this past year, I've really come to enjoy hardcore so much more. Your decisions mattering more, and etc. But I think the first time I really got invested was Path of Exile 1 in high school. I joined up with some friends, and I sucked so bad. It was, granted, the game was a lot different then. It was way harder, but like, just clearing Act 1 Mervale was like, oh my god, like, I got a build that is going somewhere. And then you get to Act 2, and you like get to a zone or an enemy type that you just freaking struggle with. And it's the same deal. Like, okay, now I gotta think about my build next time a little bit better, or whatever. I think at that time I wasn't really looking up too much guides because the game was so new, especially, and there weren't any. I mean, wow, that was a lot of damage really fast. And that was really the peak Path of Exile experience for me. And when I came back and played 2, I had a lot of fun, and granted, there's a lot of things missing from that game. Jesus, dude, can't even open that door. I don't know how I'm supposed to clear into that. Legitimately, I don't know. And so, I guess the greater story here, what I'm trying to say is, what I have been enjoying about the hardcore is it reinvents the game. It forces you to have these problems and come up with solutions. People say, classic WoW wasn't designed for hardcore. You're right, it wasn't, as designed, but that doesn't mean that a hardcore game can't be experienced out of it. It works out perfectly with classic because there's like a really good balance of, I'll just say, like, fairness and mechanics. And so it makes it possible, because you have to think about workarounds and solutions to do raid bosses and engage in the content that you would have never thought you would in softcore, because you can't die. Jesus, just freaking getting domed in there. That must be non-elemental. that was a fun little, nerve-wracking, but fun. Forces you to engage in things in a different light. And, you know, that's the epitome of the hardcore experience. So now, if you've played Classic WoW before, you get to enjoy it again. And because it's hardcore, and when you die and you gotta start over, there's way more longevity. Now, all of a sudden, all this content, you know, I'll just call it the 1 to 60 leveling experience in a game, you know, and I'll even go as far as like all campaigns of all games. Now everything about it matters, and you're constantly trying to optimize and be strongest at all points. You know, so now let's look at PoE 2 and Diablo. Why do I need to ever optimize my character when I just need to, like, follow this guide and, you know, you're just checking the boxes, and, you know, maybe you don't ever invest in getting stronger and you die a couple times and you're like, oh well, this build it's gonna come online later or whatever, and it's like, well, you can't do that, you know, because you have to get through and experience that part of the game too, and it continues to give it relevance, right? You know, Act 2, what I'm doing right now, playing through Act 2 normal. Let's say you would light up like a standard character. You know, there's a big focus on a lot of these games for the end game, and it's like, wow, that's a really good lightning resist 20% ring, and it's all about getting to the end game. And PoE 2, it's all about getting to maps, you know, maps, you know, and it's like, well, what are you rushing towards? You know, are you don't want to engage in like these acts and this gameplay and like solving it. You just want to like get there as fast as possible, and you know, that's another problem on its own of, you know, we want to rush through content to get to the fun stuff, right? But you miss the journey. You know, you get to the fun stuff, and you know, they meant for you to have fun along the way. World of Warcraft is a perfect example where I could just level and enjoy the process. But what about the journey of getting there and like trying to figure out how to do it, you know, and solve problems, and, you know, gain at least like item upgrades that, you know, kind of make, you know, that little bit of interest in like, oh man, this item, now I can do this, you know, after farming a little bit. And, you know, that's okay, I guess, if you do just want to get to this endgame content, and it's like, it's kind of a symptom of like streamer culture and whatever, that like, you want to do what they're doing because that's cool, and it's like, well, is that where you're at? You know, does it make sense for you to be doing that kind of stuff? Because they play all day every day, and like, yeah, that looks like fun and it's whatever, but like, you didn't get there, you didn't earn it yet. And when I say earn it, like, yeah, you might be able to pilot this build and this character to it, and, you know, I'll even give you that. You're successful, right? But what did you do to figure out that game or that build? You know, did you sit down and think about it? Did you struggle? You know, probably not. So, I don't know, it's just kind of like a greater topic, and when you think about that a little bit deeper, you think about, and basically I'm just rambling until I get there, by the way, so I can buckle up. When you think about that on a deeper level, I lost my train of thought. I was so scared of those guys. Oh, about you earning it. You know, it's fine to fail and struggle along the way, because every time you're learning something. Oh, I remember where I was going with that thought. Points of friction. Okay, this is like bullet point right here. Newer games are eliminating points of friction. They're eliminating systems that are meant to struggle, and it's all under the guise of like quality of life. You know, and that's the biggest trick the devil ever, you know, sold. Fucking Ethereum, let's go. You know, let's look at item durability. Why is it so common in old games? If it's so bad, you know, if it's such a bad system, well, what we gotta start thinking about purpose here. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a bad situation. The purpose, well, there's probably a few different purposes to item durability, right? It's to get you to go back to town, for one, and it's, you know, to slow you down sometimes, but maybe that's natural how it was intended to, like, be your play experience, that you go back, you fix your armor. Or it's like a drawback that, like, okay, you need to, this gear might be really good, but it has, you have to deal with durability. Diablo is a great example where there's items, you couldn't have these items without durability. They're called ethereal. I'm hovering over it now. It actually has enhanced damage and stats, but it can't be repaired. And so, you know, you lose an interesting, like, potential for a trade-off, I think, like that, because it's another knob or dial that can be turned. I kinda lost my guy again. And potions are, oh, I need more gold. Potions are like the second example of, like, well, why do I need potions? Why don't I just use the flask system in PoE? And I think the flask system is a great innovation, obviously, and it improves things. It doesn't mean it's bad, and this also doesn't mean I would rather play PoE with potions, right? Different game. But the potion system in Diablo 2 is good because, you know, it makes you limit your resource. It makes you have, not limit your resource, it just kind of makes you think about more economically about how you approach stuff. You know, how many potions does it take for me to get through this content? If you're chugging down potions the whole time, you might not be profiting very well. And yeah, that gets to be less true in later levels of the game when you're kind of closer to endgame type stuff, I'm sure. But it just serves as this other, like, dial, like, hey, my build is good at operating without potions. Now that's really interesting. You know, for example, I do know, like, a lot of people who are min-maxing, and I'll just call it min-maxing, and they're following the established guides, right? That's fine. They never put points into max mana, and guess how they solve their mana issues? Only mana potions. And that's interesting, right? Because now that's a dial, and maybe there's a benefit to maybe a more mana regen character that doesn't have to do that, and he can farm more efficiently and doesn't have to go back as much. You know, it's just an interesting little, wow. These guys hit so freaking hard, dude. You know, another point of friction is my follower dying here. Costs gold every time he dies. You know, that sucks, but guess what? You know, there's a cost to having a follower. Oh, I should not be going out there with all my gold. That's a bad idea, in case I die. Let's talk a bit more broadly about, like, okay, points of friction again. You know, you're playing a game and you need this crafting material, and it takes a really long time to get. And it's just for a potion so that you can do, you know, maybe you need to grind potions. Let's say I have to craft these by getting materials to do endgame content, and you're like, well, why can't I just do the endgame content without the potions? It's like, well, maybe you can, and maybe that's the point of your build, is like, oh, this is so you don't have to do that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do one or two at a time, then we're going to come back. and so it just becomes another dial. But also what it does is it gives you like a real accomplishment of like, oh man, I farmed for 2 hours and now I can go do this really awesome fight, and oh, I don't want to whiff it because if I die or I lose whatever, well, now I, lost my 2 hours, and it becomes an investment opportunity as well, and gives more value. Let's say you do that and you get like a rare item to sell. We're gonna get some big potions here. Now that item has more value, instead of just doing some content that it just shits out items all the time. You know what I'm saying with that? I should probably have a mana potion situation in here too. I think this is Duriel. And so a modern game is designed to not have these points of friction, and they just want you to have the most fun all the time. And there's something to be said about that, like when you're writing a book. Why give all this exposition? Not exposition, but I'll just maybe say preface. Why give a lengthy backstory when you could just cut straight to the action? And it's like, well, because it makes the action more meaningful, that's why. There's a reason why that it is that way. We're not meant to engage in things with like 100% uptime mentally. Maybe there's some periods of mental downtime and like relaxing, and it's like just supposed to be when you're it's you gotta ride the waves rather than have to engage in this activity. Like, look at a movie. If it was just all action, like, what's the point? I need to know why we're doing it, and you need to build up so that the action becomes meaningful. And when you have a lot of these like modern AAA games where they're eliminating these points of friction, and it just ends up like devaluing your overall experience. A really, really big point of friction in Diablo 2 is the items, right? Before I go kill this Duriel, good items are tough to come by. Let's look at the vendor. If you're able to look at the screen quick, you don't really have to. I'll explain some of these items on the vendor. White item. White. 5% chance to cast level 3 Firebolt on attack. It's okay. 3 sockets. That's actually a really good one. That's funny. Adds 1 to 4 cold damage. +1 maximum damage. 50% damage to undead. These items are brutal. Okay, and the socket ones do end up being some of the best, can be some of the strongest items you can get. But that's with another currency. So then what do good items look like? I'm at end of Act 2. That's, 2 acts in. What are my gloves? +1 strength, +2 dexterity, lightning res 8%, poison res 5%, 11 defense. I'm pretty sure you can imagine some better gloves, but these are awesome. These are required level 4. I'm still wearing them. Okay, let's look at a ring. Lightning resist 20%. That's it. Granted, I'm early in the game, right? I found a unique set item. Guess what the item does? 30 defense, cold res 40%. Arctic binding. Really good, actually. Most defense you'll find on a belt slot, and that cold res is unparalleled. These items are simple. You go play a game like Diablo 4, 3, even PoE is guilty of this now. These items are complex, and these, my items are going to get complex too, don't get me wrong, but let's just compare, I'll just say midway through the game. They don't look remotely similar. There's stacking percentages that end up not making sense. There's, and PoE does a good job, PoE 2 does a good job at that, at tuning it back. But it's like, finding a good item here is a real point of friction and a reason for me. I'm wearing a helmet that just has 2 sockets. That's it. Didn't find really anything else. I've used one that gives me some stats. It makes it exciting when you do and meaningful. Kind of back to my point of the point of friction of like finding potions or whatever. Now my build, I'm actually using some runes. I farmed up some runes, so I got Malice, Broadsword. It's on a 3 socket. Stealth, Chainmail. So I'm playing without guides, and when I say without guides, I'm not looking up a build. I'm not looking up a strategy or how to approach the game. I'm playing the game how I know how to play that I've learned. I have, however, I looked up the rune words. So in this game, there's these runes. They're basically like the currency items of this game, like in PoE 2. So it lets you like craft basically a unique or an item, and the stats aren't too much different than what the runes give you, but there's usually some extras on top. And like combinations of these, and there's tons of them. I mean, I don't know how many I have here, at least 8. In a certain order, it has to be in the right order as well, gives you the item. So I have looked up a list of, okay, well, what can I make with all of these? I did farm these for a while, that's why I have a lot. Just because I didn't feel like completely blowing time trying to figure out what they do. I think that's like a good example of like when a guide or resource is suitable, because it doesn't influence my gameplay. It just, okay, I know how to use this. Something about hardcore too is the heirloom. Keeping all of this character doesn't mean a lot to me. I mean, obviously it does. It's my strongest character right now, and he's pushing big content for me. But he's funding all of this so that he's walking so that the next generation can run, and that's the same on hardcore WoW. That's the same on PoE 2 hardcore. I think hardcore is probably best enjoyed when that is a factor in the game. If you loaded up hardcore, I'll call it Kingdom Hearts, no death run. Yeah, it's a feat of skill, and it's like, it would make some interesting things. But you're not really progressing, and that's tough. I'll admit that. If you're playing a game like this and you're not like getting some form of long form progression, it's gonna be tough. Anyways, this is pretty much just completely random musings. I had no notes, no bullet points. Kind of curious what you guys think. Would love to hear back. I'm gonna make some more formal videos for like Diablo and maybe World of Warcraft as well for my guild. I just thought this would be fun because it's 2:58 a.m. and feeling a little loosey-goosey. Go over my build really quick before I go kill this guy. So I started off with 5 points and find a potion. Great example of like, why would you ever do that in softcore? But that is my economy. That is what stimulated my economy. It's my action plan, because that let me basically you can use it on the corpse of a monster to find a potion, and it costs mana. And with 5 skill points, my first 5 levels gives me 50% chance. So now with every body dropping a potion, I sold those for extra gold. I made a lot of gold, at least relative to the level. And I'm able to buy items off the vendor that will make me stronger. I'm able to sustain myself, my character, in terms of my health and mana, which is obviously important. That lends into find item. It actually gets a bonus from find potion, where every point in find potion raises 1%, and it works the same way. You can use it on a corpse to find another item. I got all of the shouts right now that I can get. You can rank them up to go further, but it's kind of pretty diminishing return. So the main one I'm using is shout. That's 100% defense, so it just doubles my defense, which is the enemy's chance to hit you. Battle Cry, you can use that, and it lowers enemy defense and damage, so easier to hit them, and they deal less to you. That's going to be how I kill Duriel here, that combined with Shout. And Howl, which sends monsters away with fear. If it ever gets surrounded, it's kind of my get out of jail. My combat masteries, I took the point Iron Skin, the point increased stamina when I could, just to get them rolling. More defense, more stamina for running. And 6 in Blade Mastery, because I'm going to use swords. It's just, you gotta make that decision, because this is like 80% more accuracy and 53% more damage, so it's like, you just gotta bite the bullet, you know what I mean? I do have a skill point remaining, but I was kinda gonna save that. I might just throw that in Blade Mastery. My combat skills, kinda similar, just 1 in each. I am using Concentrate. That ends up being an attack that is not interruptible and improves attack rating, accuracy, and defense. So that's going to be another key piece here of killing Duriel on melee. As far as my gear goes, kind of went over that quick. I really don't have anything special. I do have my rune words, which, you know, that is really, really strong for what they are, and I had to farm those. I probably spent 2 to 3 hours just farming runes before I started closing up Act 2. I actually don't know how it's gonna go, so kind of the moment of truth here. We're gonna figure this out. Oh, okay. Maybe I just use it. Oh. Kind of scared, honestly. I could end up just getting completely domed here. Alright. Let's get a defense up. EQ. Potions. Using Concentrate. Yes, I am. Concentrate. Health potion. We're just spamming Concentrate. Losing a little bit of health. Oh, just double potion, that's not good. I have this screen up in case I need to drink one of these. Get that debuff on. This is the first time I've seen Duriel. Since I started playing again. Mana's not good, and we're through. Freaking lit up, boys. Nephrune. Look at all that legendary trident. Let's check out that trident. It's my second unique legendary. Razor Tine. Requires level 12, 13 to 22, 30% increased attack speed, minus 50% target defense, slows target, 15 strength, 8 dex. That is crazy. Now I'm gonna make a spear guy at some point. That's so good. Let's see what else we got. We got the Nephrune, studded leather. It seems I've neglected portal scrolls. Huh. That's not good. I might not be able to take this all out with me. Here, maybe I can throw some shit in the cube and make some space. Maybe let's just D it all. Check out what it is. That's shit. That is, don't even have to look at it because I see +2 terror, +1 clay golem, level 2 teeth charges. That's interesting. I don't know how good that is. Let's double check. Good resistances on that chest. I'll probably take that chest. Oh. extra socket. That's pretty good for only, really good for an axe situation. It's kind of a tough decision. I do really want, I could drop these books. I don't need that book. It's empty. Anyways, I'm gonna end the video there. Thanks for watching if you listen to all this.